Did you catch this soundbite from the White House Crypto Summit?
And we are going to put a lot of thought into the stablecoin regime. And as President Trump has directed, we are going to keep the U.S. the dominant reserve currency in the world, and we will use stablecoins to do that. Thank you.
The White House basically just gave their blessing to Tether to become the digital stablecoin leader. And they're a big proponent of Bitcoin. Sounds promising. Did you hear this clip?
When the president balances the budget, his first move is going to be, he has suggested that he would like to waive taxes for people under $150,000.
Woo! I should be ecstatic, right? Breaks for the low and the middle class. Here's the problem with these two clips. Number one, Tether represents a centralized party that can be co-opted, corrupted, and controlled. Problem number two, the United States government offering tax breaks to people who make less than $150,000 is just picking winners and picking losers. This is why we need Bitcoin, a decentralized, permissionless system. It has rules without rulers and allows us to successfully enter into a new digital era of freedom. We're entering an era where the European government just said that they will use 10 trillion euros of their citizens' unused savings in order to fund their defense. Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, was just banned from his own platform. The FBI just told Citibank to freeze funding for the Habitat for Humanity. This proves that regardless of political power, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Bitcoin represents our chance at freedom in the digital age. Today, we're going through why we need open, decentralized money in an era of fake news and government corruption. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go.
When I was on the other side of the wall, I never really liked the term fake news. Now that I am on the inside and I can see what they're reporting, I think the term fake news probably isn't strong enough. It's really not. That they start with an a priori, they've written the story, and then they just kind of shape shift facts to back into it, because many of the stories that I've been involved with are just so far off. There was a story in the New York Times the other day that talked about 50% headcount decreases at the IRS. Nobody's talking about that. These were on background, these were not named sources, and they're just trying to stir tumult during taxpayer filing season. I mean, it's crazy.
And this is why people lack trust. Trust in the news, trust in the government, trust in institutions. When given the ability to manipulate and to corrupt, humans always take the power into their own hands. Instead of letting go of control, we create systems of control. Like the EU, who says that they plan on launching their own CBDC as soon as October of this year as a means of control. Because without control, it could be dangerous.
You're introducing the electronic euro, as I know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
How can switching to an electronic currency help?
Now we have in Europe this threshold above 1,000 euros, you cannot pay cash. If you do, you are on the gray market. You take your risk. You get caught, you are fined, or you go in jail. But the digital euro is going to have a limited amount of control. There will be control. You're right. You're completely right. We are considering whether for very small amounts, anything that is around 300, 400 euros, we could have a mechanism where there is zero control. But that could be dangerous.
And this is why Bitcoin is a threat to them, not for the reasons that Christine Lagarde mentions in the video.
On a completely different topic, your Czech counterpart yesterday said that his institution will assess including Bitcoin into foreign currency reserves. And US President Trump has backed the idea of a national strategic Bitcoin reserve. What do you think about such ideas? Is that something the ECB is looking into? Thanks.
On this matter that you referred to, and whether reserves of central bank should or could include Bitcoins, I think there is a view around the table of the Governing Council, and most likely the General Council as well, that reserves have to be liquid, that reserves have to be secure, that they have to be safe, that they should not be plagued by the suspicion of money laundering or other criminal activities. And as a result, I'm confident that reserves will not enter, that bitcoins will not enter the reserves of any of the central banks of the General Council.
With Bitcoin, they don't have the ability to surveil, curtail, or control. And this is what gives people power. And this is why Jack Dorsey has been the largest funder of open source technology in the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Who do you have to ask for permission from? Number one, we discussed a little bit, which is the government. The government is very similar to number two, which is a corporation. The difference is the government has a monopoly on violence. It has an army. It can force you to do things through weapons. While you may think you own a piece of property or you own a piece of clothing or anything that you feel like you have ownership over, it's actually just a lease from the government. They're giving you permission to continue to own it. They can seize it at any point if you do something that is against their policy or against their laws or against their rules. So there is no true ownership with this monopoly of violence.
What's ironic, he always argues against centralized control. Yet in a crazy course of irony, he was just banned from Twitter, the platform he created, and posted about it on Nostr. If this isn't an example or a case study of why we need open permissionless systems, then I don't know what is. But before we go any further as to why Bitcoin is a solution to these problems, let's go to our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Ledn, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Since 2018, Ledn has offered over $9 billion worth of loans to 40,000 customers. They've never lost a single cent or sat of customer money, and they were the first digital lender to do a proof of reserves. Ledn offers you the ability to unlock liquidity from your Bitcoin without selling your Bitcoin. You do this by posting your Bitcoin as collateral, 2 times the amount of loan that you want to get. The average time that it takes to get your loan funded is just 18 hours. The process takes less than 2 minutes. I've done it myself. Go to learn.ledn.io/borrow in order to get started with your process today. That's learn.ledn.io/borrow. Bitcoin is the only neutral payment system. Take it from David Marcus, the CEO of Lightspark and who was the creator of Libra, one of the biggest stablecoin and money projects around the world before it was shut down for not being decentralized.
I came from the closed payment space until I was the victim of Wences and like many others here many years ago. And to your point, when I was at Meta, we tried this Libra thing that we discussed with Jack, and Jack was like, no, if you don't do it on Bitcoin, it's not going to work. He was right. And we tried actually to make it work on Bitcoin with Lightning, early days of Lightning. It was just not going to scale to billions of people. So we went with the proprietary but open source route. And what we quickly realized is that actually the problem is if you're trying to change the way that money moves around the world in a really profound systemic way, you have to build it on top of something that's unassailable and truly neutral. And the most neutral form of money ever created is Bitcoin. And it so happens to be digital. And so if it's neutral and it's digital and you want to keep it that way, open source is absolutely critical because it enables all kinds of different companies to build, and there's no single throat to choke.
We need more people and more companies focused on privacy-centric open source projects. And the biggest and most useful and impactful one with the most traction, the most users, and the biggest use case and impact is Bitcoin, bar none. With this recent blessing from the United States government, people are going to start touting Tether as the savior for all of the unbanked people around the world. But don't be fooled.
Outside the US, there are 3 billion people that are called unbanked or underbanked. They don't have access to standard financial systems. They don't have any ways to pay, and they're desperate to have the dollar. Right. So as any company, you have to find your product market fit, and that is the unbanked for us. And we created a great business that is helping the United States buying back all the T-bills that we can. We have more than $115 billion in US treasuries. We are 19th largest country. We are not a country, of course, and holding T-bills.
The only true system that can deliver on the ideals that were mentioned is Bitcoin. RFK Jr. makes a great point when he talks about the Canadian truckers whose bank accounts were frozen and their ability to transact freely was taken from them.
And when the truckers disobeyed, when the truckers protested peacefully, their bank accounts were shut down. Well, and they couldn't pay their mortgages. They couldn't pay for their children's education. The government could control their speech by controlling their transactional freedom. And, transactional freedom is as important as freedom of speech. And you only get that from Bitcoin. We're not going to get that, as long as the government controls our digitalized currency.
So when you see the news, it's important to recognize that there's two core features of Bitcoin: number go up technology, but also freedom go up technology. As you go further and further in your journey, one tends to become more important than the other. Jeff Booth is one of my favorite examples of this. He left a Twitter following of 377,000 to go all in on Nostr. And he's famous for saying that he wants to put his energy, time, money, and efforts into the future that he wants to see.
I gave up 370,000 people that followed all of my stuff and retweeted and I just said, see ya. I'm spending all my time here because I wanted to give my energy to the world I want to see emerge. Now, I don't judge anybody for not wanting to do that at their time, but what you're going to find is more and more people are going to make that choice, either by force or by, not by force, but by realizing the risks of centralization and what's happening, and that Elon isn't a god, and they're going to start to move their time over to something that's like this, or by all of the development that's happening that's going to provide like 10 or 100x better value than Twitter can provide, because open protocols win, because all of the development is interchangeable with it.
If you believe like Jeff Booth that place is Bitcoin, then I encourage you to join me and hundreds of other Bitcoiners from all across the country down in Dallas, Texas from April 3rd through April 6th at the BitBlockBoom conference, the longest running US-based Bitcoin-only conference. Hear from me, Parker Lewis, Guy Swan, Marty Bent, Bob Burnett, and some of your other favorite speakers in Bitcoin, as well as go to workshops where you can learn how to buy your first Bitcoin, mine Bitcoin at home, remove it from third-party exchanges, and meet some of your favorite Bitcoiners in real life at parties like the Saturday Casino Night. Get $100 off your all-inclusive ticket by going to bitblockboom.com and entering the promo code BBB25. That's bitblockboom.com and entering the promo code BBB25. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.